Dennis Ferris, CEO at Dragonfly Energy. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's nice to talk to you again, Jordan.
Same to you. So, to get things started, in the light of the tragic news of a lithium-based fire in a New York City apartment that led to multiple deaths and other serious injuries, the safety of lithium batteries has been thrust into the spotlight. New York City Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh attributes the alarming number of fire fatalities, 17 so far this year in New York City, to the sale of unsafe batteries, bicycles, and scooters by major e-commerce companies such as Amazon and Walmart. She contends that these companies are either selling substandard products or falsely claiming that their products meet important safety regulations. Can you comment on this alarming situation and explain the key safety concerns when it comes to these products?
It's awful whenever something like this happens, and it's really sad, and it's not great for the industry, obviously, for the lithium battery industry. My comment is it's just becoming so much more prevalent now. Lithium batteries in all different industries has been shown to basically improve the product, improve the experience for the customers. So it's just that much more prevalent. And so it is that much more important that safety standards are put in place and adhered to. So it is definitely not surprising that as lithium batteries become more and more ubiquitous, you're going to run into these issues, especially flammability issues. Lithium batteries are known to have flammable components in them. So it makes it that much more important that safety measures are basically established, that companies that make batteries adhere to these safety standards, and that we just make sure that as the growth of this industry continues to accelerate, that these tragic circumstances do not.
Absolutely. And what role does battery quality play in ensuring safety? Are there any specific safety features or design considerations that can significantly enhance battery safety?
Yes. I mean, every lithium-ion battery pack should have some safety control mechanism, typically an electronic board that monitors the state of each cell in the battery pack. And if there are any errant states in terms of currents, voltages, temperatures, then that board should be able to act and cut off access to the cells. And on top of that, the design of the pack is very important. Considerations for heat transfer and thermal stability, because you don't know how these battery packs are going to be used out in the field. And so there are a myriad of different redundant safety measures that can be taken and should be taken when it comes to pack design and assembly.
Certainly. And what are the current regulations and safety standards in place for lithium batteries? And do you believe these regulations are adequate?
It depends on the industry. So I can speak to our industry, which our primary industry historically has been RVs. When we really gained a lot of traction in the RV market, the industry, which is a self-regulated industry by the RV Industry Association, acted pretty early. And the standards that they put in place were actually quite simple. It was basically that any battery pack that's put onto an RV at the manufacturer has to have some sort of battery pack listing. That is, it has to adhere to a standard and be tested by a third-party lab. Labs like Underwriters Laboratory, UL, or Intertech Lab, or lab test certification. There's a whole slew of these that can test to these certified standards. Standards like a 2054 or an IEC 62133 standard. There's a whole slew of standards that ensure that under the worst case scenarios, under very abusive conditions, you don't get a dangerous situation. Not that you don't necessarily get a failure of the battery, but you don't have a failure that is catastrophic. And I think that's what needs to be in place throughout every industry. If you're going to have a battery pack, it needs to be designed and assembled in such a way that under the worst case scenario, you don't end up with a dangerous situation.
And what are the advantages of domestically manufactured lithium batteries over imported products?
Well, certainly even imported products can adhere to these standards. So it's not that you can't have an imported battery that doesn't adhere to these standards, but at least if you have a domestic product that is designed and assembled here, every component can be tested and ensured for quality and adherence to these standards. Because when you adhere to one of these safety standards, every component that goes into it has to be the same every time. So you can't change components once that test has been done. And that's something that can be ensured as long as you are manufacturing and the manufacturing facility is located domestically and readily accessible by those external laboratories.
And along those same lines, what role can government policies and incentives play in promoting the production and use of high quality domestically manufactured batteries?
Well, certainly the government can put in place some of these regulations in terms of having a standard that has to be met before, for example, it is allowed to be shipped. Batteries have to meet a certain standard just to be shipped. Now, those standards are actually in place. For example, the Department of Transportation has a UN 38.3 standard that lithium-ion batteries have to meet in order to be shipped on highways. There are ways to get around that. I think that's something we've seen with a lot of the imports is they're not being shipped legally. So it really is a matter of enforcement. So a lot of these shipping companies have to ensure that if they are shipping product, they know what's in those packages and that those goods actually adhere to the necessary standards for shipping.
And Dennis, what are the potential economic and environmental benefits of investing in domestic battery manufacturing?
Well, obviously, there's an enormous economic benefit, and I think the administration knows this. I think the Washington D.C. on both sides of the aisle is very much in favor of onshoring production of basically increasing manufacturing domestically in general, but especially for energy, especially for things like energy storage. So there's a huge financial benefit to us being economically independent and able to sustain our own energy future. And that means mining, processing, manufacturing cells, assembling battery packs here in the United States. And of course, you can have environmental standards that are more stringent, that are more strict here in the United States. That is typically the case when it comes to comparing how things are manufactured in Asia. But just in general, coming up with those innovations to allow manufacturing to occur here in a cost-effective and environmentally safe manner so that we can compete on the world stage obviously has an enormous economic benefit for the country.
And speaking of manufacturing, what is Dragonfly Energy doing to ensure that their domestic battery manufacturing prioritizes safety and sustainability in its production processes?
Well, as it turns out, Dragonfly Energy started over a decade ago around technology that we had developed to streamline the manufacture of lithium-ion cells. So we knew very early on that in order to compete, we had to come up with technology that allowed for onshoring of the manufacturing while still being cost-effective when compared to cells being manufactured in Asia. So one thing that we've been working on for a long time is a solvent-free dry powder coating process to make lithium-ion battery electrodes. This reduces the cost, it reduces the energy usage, it reduces the operating expenses, it reduces the carbon footprint, the spatial footprint. It is a very beneficial, streamlined process that can be applied domestically and still be cost effective so that we can compete on a cost basis on the world stage. So that's what we're doing at Dragonfly Energy.
Amazing. And Dennis, last question. What are the latest advancements in battery technology that could further enhance safety and performance?
Well, the reason lithium-ion batteries are flammable is because of the liquid electrolyte. So there is a pretty strong push in the lithium battery scientific community to figure out how to eliminate that liquid electrolyte. We at Dragonfly have our own process that's actually based on the dry powder coating process, whereby we can apply a composite all solid electrolyte to the cell using this process. So what we're going to be working on over the next year, and actually we've developed the technology, filed all the patents, and really this just takes capital to deploy on our end, is basically to produce cells that are non-flammable. And when you talk about large stationary systems that are going to be deployed in buildings, in homes, that is where the safety consideration is much more important as compared to, for example, in a car. We're used to driving cars with gasoline, but when you're deploying storage systems in a home, and this whole situation in New York is indicative of this fact, it is really important that you remove the flammability, that you remove that liability, because ultimately it's going to be very difficult to mandate storage in people's homes if there's a chance that it could burn the house down. So safety, non-flammability is the key to all of this, and that's what we are working on at Dragonfly.
Wonderful. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for being here with us today. Hope to see you back real soon.
Thank you, Jordan.